This podcast is brought to you by On Track Studio.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of our Natural Birth Co podcast. I am pumped to be here with you today talking about a question I get asked all the time, which is essentially mamas messaging me saying, I'm really into the looks of your birth workshop. I really resonate with all the stuff that I say. However, I was contemplating doing hypnobirth or calm birth. What's the difference? How do I choose which one I should do and which one aligns best with me? And you know what? This is a very fair question because on the outside, it probably looks like we're all talking about the same stuff. However, on the inside, it definitely is very, very different. And it is amazing because everyone learns different ways and everyone wants to achieve different things from their birth workshops. So I think it is great when we can choose a birth workshop that really aligns with you, your values, how you want to birth, and also how you learn. So the woman that is going to get the most out of today's podcast episode is you're probably either pregnant or looking to become pregnant. You are wondering, why do I even need to prepare for birth? What does birth preparation actually look like? How do I choose a birth prep option that is best for me? And what am I actually looking for in my birth preparation options? What's actually important to have in a birth workshop? So before we delve straight in, I'm going to break down what we should actually be looking for in a birth workshop, what is actually really quite important to prepare for a birth experience. Now, obviously, these are angled towards women wanting a natural, minimal intervention type of birth. Essentially, birth prep is important because in this modern world, we live in a world of comfort. We also live in a world where we don't have to experience pain all that often. We have so much control. We are also living in a world where media just exploits lots of fear, trauma, and pathophysiology surrounding birth, and we often go our whole lives not ever seeing a birth until we're in our own first birth experience. So for birth prep, we're looking at physical birth preparation. Now, physical birth preparation, imagine when you go through birth, you are doing things that your body has never done before. Your pelvis is moving in a way, your baby is moving down in a way, you're feeling stretch that you've never experienced before, you're having to endure lengths that you've never had to do before. It is something that you've never done before for majority of us listening to this podcast. However, imagine if all you've done in a completely separate non-pregnant time of life, all you've done is swim 25 meters in a pool, and then one day you wake up, you're already in the pool or the ocean, you don't get any prep time, and all of a sudden you have to swim 100 kilometers. You would be exhausted if able to do it at all. At all. It would be an incredibly hard slog in comparison to if you had just been training for the last 9 months in preparation for this 100-kilometer swim that you know you are going to have to do and you want to be able to do. It is a massive difference. Same as when it comes to birth. For the physical preparation, we can balance and stretch ligaments and muscles surrounding the uterus and the pelvis. We can strengthen the muscles that will carry us through an active labor physically. We can also practice and put our body into different shapes of birth positions it may feel inclined to jump into and create the space and the length to be able to get into those positions in the first place. These sort of physical preparation techniques absolutely will allow your birth to be more easeful. It will allow it to be shorter, more progressive, more enjoyable experience for you. Now note there that I said easeful and not easy. Your birth won't be easy no matter what, no matter how much prep you do. However, we can do things to absolutely make it more easeful and more enjoyable and more natural. Second thing is our mental preparation. Mental preparation, a massive component of this is redefining how we look at pain. Being able to look at pain, feel pain, experience pain, and see it as positive and progressive rather than unsafe, unnatural, and not meant to be there. It is the difference between physiological pain and pathological pain, if that means anything to you. Being able to redefine pain in our minds before birth, before we get to birth, during the pregnancy experience is absolutely essential so that we can remain calm and present throughout your labor experience, which really helps the hormones of birth, as opposed to feeling fearful and scared of the sensations of pain, which actually creates opposite hormones that are unhelpful towards the hormonal process of birth. Also, in your mental preparation, you can create so much connection with the body and the baby. So you are feeling, for example, you're feeling stretch. You're feeling the mobility of the pelvis opening, changing shape. You're feeling the baby moving down. And we have this connection and this instinctive connection to your body that we kind of know what's happening, even if it's your first time. And women say this all the time where they kind of feel a little bit at a loss because they've not birthed before. I don't know. How am I supposed to know? I promise you that you do. When it comes to the actual experience of birth, I know that you've not done it before, but ancestrally, instinctually, biologically, you know what's right and wrong. You know what to do. And when we can build that connection and that faith and that trust in our body, when we feel into the sensations and we're used to being in the present moment, we practice this in pregnancy, being in the present moment and feeling and being aware of the sensations in our body, you have so much more connection to that during birth, which will enable you to create space in the right way, move your body in the right way, do all these sort of things that will really help your labor experience along as well. So this is why it's so important to know your options of birth preparation. So for the sake of today's episode, I'm going to break down the most common ones, which are hypnobirthing, calm birth, and then the hospital birth workshops as well. I want you to know that my perspective is just my perspective. I'm a midwife. I work at the hospital. I'm not an instructor of hypnobirth or calm birth. I have partaken in the workshops, and I've also been continuity of care with women through yoga and Pilates before birth, hearing about how they want to birth, and then debrief with them after birth, how they ended up going through birth, hearing all about their stories, and also being with women in the birth room who have done hypnobirth or calm birth before, seeing what really helped, seeing where they found themselves a little bit stuck, and being able to really just observe this whole process and mental process, physical process, how the birth partner responded throughout all these different experiences. And really create my own perspective from there. A really common birth preparation option people choose is hypnobirthing. Hypnobirthing is really great for mamas wanting to go through meditation and lots of calming techniques for themselves, and also lots of calming techniques for the partner to learn. The act of hypnobirthing through pregnancy is actually such a nice spiritual journey. There's lots of, as I said, meditation, but lots of connection with the baby, connection with yourself and your pregnancy, lots of connection with the birth partner. And it creates lots of trust and faith in your body and the process of birth. You can also, through hypnobirthing, come up with a great, singular, ideal birth plan that you want, and you have a full throttle focus on that. And hypnobirthing supports that with lots of visualization, meditations, and manifestation meditations towards that single focus birth plan as well. This is really great for the mama who likes to have one task and one kind of plan to focus on without any of the side views. They really kind of want this one way, only way for their birth experience. It's also really great for the mama who wants to, in general, be really quite spiritual throughout their pregnancy experience, doesn't want a lot of the kind of, logical or evidence-based side of birth and kind of learning about the anatomy and stuff. They're not that interested in that side of things and really want to lean into the spirituality of it, which is really such a beautiful aspect of pregnancy. And it's actually, pregnancy is a really great time for mamas to delve into being spiritual and meditation and stuff like that. And I do find it's a time for a lot of women where they'll do things like yoga and meditation for the first time and really enjoy exploring that side of themselves. So those sort of women is who would really benefit from hypnobirthing. Some really important things to consider when choosing hypnobirthing is that there's kind of not a lot of wiggle room. There's no backup plan. And what that can mean is that if something pops up that veers your plan off track, even just a little bit, it can create a lot of panic, a lot of freak out, and a very quick spiral of the control coming out of your hands into the control of the hospital and the healthcare professionals, which can make your birth go very far off track from what you were expecting. Now, these things that can veer your plan, they can be things that are completely out of your control, things that might have needed to happen for the safety of you and your babe, and they don't have to be the end of the world, but they end up being the end of the world. Or they can even be things that are still quite normal and just different from what you would imagine. So that may be a labour that's longer than you would expected, which labours can naturally be quite long. Or it could even look like you get in the bath and you don't like the feeling of the bath, and then all of a sudden, you know, the whole plan's out the window, and you and your partner both feel at quite a loss at what to do because your birth isn't going to this ideal plan that you had imagined. Another thing to consider is that I sometimes, well, to be honest, quite often find that in birth, meditation and breathing isn't quite enough in the lens of coping with pain and labor, especially if we're talking about a potentially longer birth experience. Those tools can get you through so far. However, I find that a lot of women, especially in the longer births, they need something more. Even if it's just for a moment, they need something more than that, and the breathing and meditation isn't quite enough. And lastly, I do find with the hypnobirthing, unfortunately, there's a fair bit of a judgmental aspect to it, which I find a bit of a bitter pill to swallow because, mamas go through enough shame and guilt at the best of times, let alone if they're presented with this thing that's out of their control, or they chose to do it because it's their freaking choice and they feel a lot of shame for it afterwards. And I just think that is a really, inexcusable thing that absolutely doesn't need to happen. So that's something that I do find quite tricky in the hypnobirth world. And I just think that as well, if you do choose to do hypnobirthing, takes a lot of awareness on the judgment upon yourself and kind of really letting go of a lot of what other people think towards your birth experience as well. A lot of awareness towards that's going to be required. A great alternative option that I have found is there's a book for hypnobirthing. It's called Hypnobirthing, the Monongan Method, and it includes a lot of the education of hypnobirthing and also a lot of the meditations. And it was a great book, and I actually found it really interesting. And I actually recommend that to a lot of our women who, they might feel they're in our birth workshop, but they might feel interested in hypnobirthing, and I'll recommend that book for them to read, and they do quite enjoy it. So that can be a great option even if you do explore alternatives, but you are feeling this interest towards hypnobirth, that can be a really great option as well. Mamas, are you not local to the Sunshine Coast but want to prepare yourself and your partner for a natural birth? We have our amazing new course called Birth Circle, which is run exclusively online. It is literally the most in-depth, integrative, supportive birth preparation service that we offer here at Natural Birth Co. If you want tangible steps, holistic practices, and expert support individualized for you to prepare your mind, body, and partner for a progressive birth, this is for you. The link is in the show notes for an August start, and there is only limited spots, so get in quick. Now, calm birth is another really wonderful option as well. So it has the similar benefits to the previous course discussed in, meditation and lots of calming techniques for the mother during labor and in the preparation for labor as well. Lots of calming techniques for the partner to perform on the mother, which is beautiful for labor as well. I do find it's also a lot more inclusive of having different plans, different preferences, having different ideas. They definitely don't demonize intervention, which I believe is really important. It's important that we don't be stubborn towards medical interventions. It's important that we are able to view them from like a non-biased lens, because there is times and places for them when they are required, and we don't want to feel this kind of hesitation towards it when it's from a place of worrying about what other people think and from a place of having a biased opinion rather than just seeing a situation for what it is. So calm birthing is a lot more inclusive of that. But I also find calm birthing is also really great at being inclusive of birth anatomy and physiology and also a lot of birth positions and techniques. And I find that really helpful for the women as well. So it's a really great option for women who want to receive a really broad perspective of birth and how to birth naturally. The limitations that I do see is that it's great for women who are low risk and have a normal, 6-hour labor, and they go into labor naturally and it kind of all just flows really well and really easily, which ideally happens to us. However, it doesn't happen for most. As soon as there's a big decision that needs to be made, or as soon as there's a risk that evolves through the pregnancy or a risk that evolves through the birth, as soon as birth goes longer than what we had expected, whether that be for a normal physiological reason, because yes, birth can normally and naturally be long, or whether it be because there's a stall, all of a sudden, again, we're at a bit of a loss. We don't have any tools. We don't know what else to do. Breathing is not enough, and things can spiral out of control very quickly. And the birth partner doesn't know how to combat that spiral and bring it down, bring it back to baseline. So then again, that control can very quickly spiral into the hands of the hospital and the healthcare professionals rather than the woman and the birthing couple. And lastly, hospital birth preparation workshops. What do I want to say about this? Obviously, I work at the hospital. I am a hospital midwife and I love the hospital. However, not gonna lie, birth preparation is not our forte. It is not our area of expertise at all. I probably wouldn't really recommend a hospital birth workshop. It is often, more often than not, very disempowering, does not give any sort of confidence or excitement to the woman or her partner towards birth, and it often induces even more fear towards the experience of birth. It's often presented as a show and tell of different interventions or devices that may be used during birth, and then also a menu of the plethora of medical pain relief options that you could choose from. And that's often the extent of it. So I honestly wouldn't really recommend a hospital birth workshop for a woman wanting to birth naturally or have a minimal intervention birth. However, if you are not that woman and you know you want to go in and you want to have an early epidural, you just want to birth your baby and you want to move on to the mothering stage of life, and the birth experience isn't really something that you're into, it's not your style, that's fine. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And honestly, you might find a bit of value in the hospital birth workshop and seeing the bits and pieces and getting a little bit familiar with it all and the devices and the midwives and the hospital itself as in the location. However, again, for a woman wanting to birth naturally, minimal intervention, I probably wouldn't recommend doing a birth workshop at all. At the hospital, of course. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention here is that I understand the hospital workshop is for free, and I completely acknowledge that money can be a limitation to women being able to do an external birth workshop, for sure. I really encourage, once you reevaluate your priorities and you figure out, okay, am I actually prioritizing my birth experience? Because sometimes we can feel we don't have the money for it, but then it's just because we haven't really reevaluated in this new phase of life, and we might still be getting our nails done or our facials and stuff like that. That could maybe be sacrificed to do a birth workshop. However, even with that sort of situation, lots of people still can't afford it. Absolutely appreciate that. In those situations, I still think you're best off not inducing fear and disempowering yourself through doing something like a hospital birth workshop. And honestly, you're better off accessing the plethora of free resources online. For example, my podcast, so much free information. For example, the free module that I have coming out in a couple of weeks. Great resource. And there's, free meditations that we have for birth and for pregnancy. There's birth preference checklists, all for free, all strewn over our website. And that's just us. And there's so much more out there. So I really do encourage leaning towards that way if you do find you've got that limitation of finances during your pregnancy. To be honest, over the time that I've been with women, what is it now? About 8 or 9 years I've been a midwife. I cannot believe those words coming out of my mouth. I'm going to have long service leave soon. That's phenomenal. Anyways, over these 8 or 9 years that I've been practicing with women, I've seen them through 2 different perspectives, right? We've had the continuity of care with women where I see them in classes, so yoga and Pilates. We'll do pregnancy yoga and Pilates where I'll talk to them all about their birth desires, all about what they learnt in their birth courses, all about how it helps them feel excited and empowered and confident to birth, how it is for their birth partner, what their dream births look like. And then I hear postnatally at Mums and Bubs how their birth actually went, what actually went down, what techniques really helped her and her birth partner, where did the birth maybe get a little bit unstuck, where did it maybe go a little bit off track. And then I see this other perspective of working with women in the actual hospital, in the actual birth suite. And I'll be working with these women who have done hypnobirth or calm birth and really seeing how they actually respond during the process of birth. How do their partners actually respond during the process of birth? What are some really cool, helpful techniques that have helped them achieve their birth experience that they wanted or go through specific phases of labor? Or what situations have left them a little bit unsure, a little bit at a loss of what to do, a little bit kind of out of control and feeling uneducated in that particular circumstance of what to do. And honestly, it's from these 2 perspectives that I've built a really clear picture of where the gaps are. Where does birth hit a wall and kind of fall off track? What is it that actually makes a woman perceive her birth as a positive or a negative? What is it that actually takes a woman's power away? And what is it that actually empowers her and makes her feel strong and in control of her birth experience and her choices? And it's really from this place that I've built Natural Birth Code to holistically prepare women for their dream birth where they feel confident and empowered. And the best way that I figured out how to do this and the foundation is the mental, the physical, and the birth partner preparation. All 3 are equally as essential. So in addition to the above education that's covered in hypnobirth and calm birth, and these are very important, which is why we teach them, because they are very essential for this natural birth experience. But in addition, we also cover physical and mental tools to help you have a progressive and efficient birth experience. This component to your birth preparation is birth changing. Labor is a beautiful thing, but we don't want to labor for longer than what we have to. Studies show that longer labors are much more likely to experience medical intervention, to experience birth trauma, and to experience pelvic floor dysfunction. There are many preparation techniques mamas can do in their pregnancy to prepare for a progressive birth, as well as practice both mama and partner can utilize during labor to help birth continue on, avoiding these long, arduous labors. Another observation that I made with these women was that we need a lot more tools to manage pain in labor. We need a lot more tools. We need a lot more screwdrivers in the belt. We need a lot more solutions to the women's problems. We need, especially for women going through these longer labors. Longer labors can be very normal, and when we are experiencing that, there's only so often we can hear, just keep breathing, just come back to your breath. It's okay, let's just breathe. When a woman, she's over it. She's done. She's put her foot down. She does not want to experience this anymore. She needs a solution to her problem. And in that point of time, when she has been breathing for the entire labor, she's gone through all the different breathwork tools, breathwork is not enough. Laboring women need solutions to their problems to effectively get back in the zone. Once you're in the zone, you can usually keep her there pretty well. But if something happens that brings her out of the zone, which could even be just herself, where she kind of spirals out of this zone, we need to catch that spiral ASAP and bring her back down. Often breathwork will keep her there. It isn't always going to make the cut when we're in a spiral. And this is where having so many different tools in our tool belt can be really, really effective for birth partners to be able to whip out. To just whip out at the drop of a hat, come up with an idea that is going to be a solution to her problem. She may only use it for 3 minutes and then she gets back into the zone and she's just breathing and swaying and doing her thing. And that's all she needed. She just needed a short-term solution. And I say that in quotation marks because it is just us saying with complete conviction that it's all going to be okay. You're going to get through this birth experience. Let's do this. She just needs someone to come up with a solution. And that is why you can have so many tools in your tool belt, and we need more than breath, than meditation, especially when we're in this spiral, in this state of logical mind. Breathwork and meditation isn't going to quite make the cut a lot of the time. Another gap that we filled was with our birth preferences. I'm a big believer in having preferences, multiple different preferences for multiple different potential tracks that your birth may come down. So what this looks like is, okay, it's all well and good to say, no, I'm not going to be induced and I'm going to have a completely natural labor. What happens when you get to 42 weeks? What happens when you get to 43 weeks? What do? Do you just keep going or do you not? Or do you have lingering in the back of your mind, in your subconscious at 40 weeks? I'm not going to get an induction, which is great and wonderful. But then you're just thinking like every day that ticks past, you're just thinking, oh my gosh, what are my options? What do? I only have 4 days to go into labor. I only have 3 days. I only have 2 days. And if I don't go in the next couple of days, then it's the end of the world. And that's what it feels like because we have no idea what the plan is after that. Whereas with our women, for example, we come up with a birth preferences specific for induction and then we tuck it into a safe space for a rainy day and we don't even look at it or whip it out until you meet that standard that you've decided to have that induction for you. That could be at any stage, and when you do, you're going to do it in this way so that you can still have this beautiful, empowering and confident birth experience. Same as what if something random pops up that's out of our control during birth? And a little side note, hint of some things to look into. What if your waters break and there's meconium in the water? What are you going to do? Are you going to get monitoring? Are you going to act on it? Are you going to not? Are you going to know what to do? Or are you going to kind of feel at the mercy of whatever you're recommended because we don't really know what to do? Things like that. There's 1,000,001 different things that can randomly pop up that we can preemptively think about as much as we can to create a plan about what we're going to do. In this option, I'm willing to accept this, I'm not willing to accept that. And you know all this in pregnancy, and your birth partner does, more importantly, so you both feel so confident going into your birth that no matter what pops up, I'm going to have a beautiful, confident, and empowering birth experience. So, I will be honest, my course, Birth Circle, is not for every woman. Birth Circle is for the woman wanting to have a natural and physiological birth with minimal medical intervention, involving their partner and desires to be in control of her birth and feel empowered to make evidence-based decisions in the lead up to and during labor. That is who Birth Circle is for, and that is not for everyone. So in short, Birth Circle is for the mama who wants tangible steps, holistic practices, and personalized expert support to prepare their mind and body for a progressive birth. Me being a qualified midwife and a yoga instructor has really given a holistic lens to personalize each mama's birth preparation experience, unlike other natural birth prep options. In our natural birth co method, we don't only focus on mindfulness and spiritual practices, nor do we have a sole clinical approach. In fact, it is with this foundation that we have a 100% success rate in supporting mamas to feel empowered and excited towards birth. This foundation really integrates 3 pillars, which is our mental, physical, and birth partner preparation. So up until now, our Natural Birth Co services have only been available to our local Sunny Coast mamas. However, now with our Birth Circle, it is available to absolutely everyone around the world, which I am just so excited to present. I've had you guys reaching out to me for years now, wanting some online goodness, and it has taken a lot of work from myself and the amazing team, and we have it now all ready to go to launch on August 6th. So I'm super excited for you to join us if you are pregnant, looking to be pregnant, wanting to prepare for your natural birth experience.